Hi and welcome to the channel. The Premier League transfer window is shut, and so I'm releasing a series of videos over the next week and a half, giving my opinion and assessing the transfers right here on the Football Fan Zone. Okay, well, today we are talking about Aston Villa Football Club and the transfers that have been made at Aston Villa. Again, just to reiterate, as in previous videos, the transfer to get a full proper assessment of a transfer window, in my opinion, can't be made until the end of a season, because only then can you actually determine a season's success or not so much success, depending on how your team does. For example, if your team gets relegated, then it doesn't matter what transfer window you had the season before. You can only be considered an utter failure for the fact that you got relegated. You know, if your target was that you were going to finish 10th and you had a transfer window to reflect that and you finished 14th, is your transfer window really then that good? So I know there's a context to it, but general idea of it is that if you know, it's hard to gauge exactly. For example, Arsenal won a transfer window last year, according to various journalists and football media alike, and they went on to finish 8th in the worst season in 26 years. So a full assessment or an accurate assessment can't be made until the end of the season. However, what we are looking at is a theoretical assessment and an opinion based on the level of players that have left and come in, weighing up the amount spent to the amount made and so on and so forth. Net spend, in my opinion, is where the key is, because there's no point looking at gross, because if you sold a £100 million player but you bought a £100 million player, well, that's a net spend of zero, and that's key, because you're not really spent £100 million because you've sold a player. It's like, you know, you might have a £250,000 house which you sell to move into another £250,000 house. Have you upgraded? No, not really. Oh yeah, I've just bought a £250,000 house, but you haven't, because you sold one. I know I'm sort of overcomplicating things a little bit, but I'm sure you'll get the gist of it. Let's have a look at Aston Villa's transfer activity this summer. So this is according to transfermarket.co.uk. I'll post a link in the description for the source. This is Aston Villa's players in Wednesday, which was an excellent signing. I cannot tell you how good I thought this signing was. Not just because he's a really good player, but because they went up toe to toe with Arsenal and won. And teams that go up against other clubs who are competing for similar honours, let's be honest, and you win those battles off the pitch, you will start to win them on the pitch. And that was a really good transfer for Norwich, on the fact that they went toe to toe with a big club like Arsenal and won. Leon Bailey, I tell you what, I did not see this one coming. Obviously, they're having to replace Jack Grealish. We'll come to that shortly. But I think Leon Bailey is a top signing for them. I really do. Danny Ings, again, this is another really good player. I can't believe Aston Villa have signed that calibre of forward. That's the sort of player that I think the likes of Arsenal could have done with. And to be fair, if Spurs were to lose Harry Kane, Danny Ings would have been a perfect replacement. And to be perfectly honest, given Cavani's age and whatnot, I wouldn't mind Danny Ings personally if I were a United fan. Throwing it out there, I think that was an excellent signing, and well, he's already scored a bit of a worldie in his first home game. So I like Danny Ings, and I think it was a good signing. Ashley Young at left back is another notable signing. Someone who watched Watford for several years, a long time ago, I saw Ashley Young on his debut for Watford. I believe it was against Millwall, and he scored in a 3-1 win. Obviously, he went from Watford to Aston Villa for what was a club record transfer fee received from Watford Football Club at the time, and then obviously went on to Man United from there, and then to Inter Milan, and then back now to Aston Villa at 35. At 35 in the Premier League, playing on that wing, bollocks of things, wing back or full back. It's going to be tough, I'll be honest. At 35 years of age, it's a lot of running up and down. It's very intense now, the Premier League, and certainly a lot of the fitness levels now. You have to be so fit these days for the Premier League. It's not just the physical, it's the pace, the fact that games played at such a fast pace. It's intense, all the pressing and whatnot is required of you now. I think it will be useful for them, but I wouldn't expect him to be a star player playing 90-minute games week in, week out. And of course, we've got a few other notable. We got a loan transfer as well. The rest of players have come back from loan. We scroll down to the outgoings, of course. Jack Grealish, a big loss to Man City, a really big loss. And I know they've invested that money, and to be fair, I think they've invested wisely with the likes of Ings and whatnot, and Buendia even. But yeah, it's a big loss. I thought he was a terrific player for them, and I think he was. I would argue he carried the team at times last year as well. When he was injured, there was a noticeable drop on their results, and it's something the manager's going to have to work out and how to play without him, frankly. Other than that, they've Tom Heaton to Man United. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I wasn't seeing that one come, to be honest, especially given that Man United have obviously got De Gea and Henderson as well. So, but yeah. So their total transfers going out was 114 million quid, as reported by the transfermarkt.co.uk. Again, these will fluctuate, and an 89 million quid spent. So again, they've made transfer profit, but mainly because of the sale of Jack Grealish, which was 105 million quid. That's probably with add-ons. There was a release fee of 100 million quid, but again, these are going to be a little bit. I tend to find a little bit give and take with these sort of transfer fees. So how do I assess, or what do I make of Aston Villa and their transfer window? How do I rate it out of 10? So on paper, I give them a good 7 out of 10. I think they've got a lot of money for Jack Grealish. I don't think it's worth 100 million quid. I think it's worth a lot of money, but I don't think it's worth 100 million quid. So they've done well out of that, and they've invested. In my opinion, they've invested wisely. Leon Bailey and Buendia and Danny Ings are 3 attacking players, which I think they needed, along with the likes of Ollie Watkins. My opinion with Aston Villa is they've got a squad that should be challenging, certainly a bit into the top half of the table, maybe top 8. Could apply a bit of pressure to the likes of Everton for sort of 6th, 7th, try and squeeze a European spot. That's my assessment on Aston Villa. The problem I have with Aston Villa is I'm not sure they've got the right manager, personal opinion. And starting this season off, they've had Watford away, Newcastle at home, Brentford at home. 3 teams which most people will put in the bottom half next season. And so a lot of people would have said, look, perhaps Villa really in those sort of games should be getting maximum points, maybe 9 points, or at the very least 2 wins and a draw, for example, 7 points. I think most Aston Villa fans going into the season, when look at those 3 fixtures, 3 teams there, all of them are going to be candidates for relegation, and 2 of them are at home. And so really 7 points would have been a minimum. They've actually got 1 win, 1 loss and 1 draw, losing to Watford on the opening game of the season where they were comfortably beaten, regardless of the scoreline being 3-2. They were comfortably beaten. Newcastle they played well in, really good goal from Danny Ings, but Brentford it was a level game. They weren't unlucky to not win. It wasn't as though Brentford went there and smashed, with a smash and grab sort of tactic. And so for me, they're 3 or 4 points off where really they should have been given their fixture to start with. And I said at the start of the season, I'm not entirely convinced by the manager. I think another manager would get more out of this current set of players, in my opinion. But in terms of their transfer window, I would give them a good solid 7 out of 10. I think they've done some really good stuff. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who would you change in that team if you could? And what mark would you give Aston Villa out of 10 for their transfers? Would you give them a 7 out of 10 like me? Would you give them a little bit more? Perhaps you thought they were even better than that. Perhaps you didn't like their transfer at all. Perhaps you thought, if they kept Grealish, that's a 7 out of 10. But by selling Grealish, it's only a 4. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And I'll see you all on the next video.